Areva Martin today. Let's get you caught up. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the violent Wagner mercenary group who in June led his fighters on an aborted mutinous march to Moscow, likely died in a jet crash in Russia on Wednesday with 9 others. In his first public acknowledgement of Prigozhin's presumed death, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the Wagner mercenary chief was, quote, a talented businessman who made serious mistakes in his life. 11 of the 19 defendants in the Georgia election case have now surrendered to authorities in Fulton County, and that number has gone up as just in the last 15 or 20 minutes, Donald Trump himself has surrendered. A federal judge yesterday denied requests by 2 defendants, Mark Meadows and Jeffrey Clark, to delay their arrests. District Attorney Fani Willis has given all defendants until noon tomorrow to turn themselves in. 8 underdog Republican presidential candidates debated last night on a stage overshadowed by Donald Trump, who snubbed his rivals in an attempt to show his dominance and consign them to irrelevancy. While some took aim at Trump, his nearest rivals either defended him or cautiously avoided him altogether as he faces 4 criminal indictments involving his alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 election, misuse of classified documents, and falsification of business records to make hush money payments to a porn star. The Los Angeles Lakers will unveil a statue of Kobe Bryant on February 8th. The team announced with Vanessa Bryant, his widow, this morning. Vanessa Bryant made the announcement in a video posted to the Lakers' social media accounts at 8:24 a.m. Pacific on 8/24, that's August 24th today, also known as Mamba Day, as a reference to the numbers 8 and 24 jerseys that Kobe Bryant wore during his 20-year Lakers career. The statue date also ties Bryant's daughter, Gianna, into the ceremony as she wore number 2. Bryant will become the 7th member of the Lakers organization to have a statue outside of Crypto.com Arena, joining Elgin Baylor, Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Jerry West, and broadcaster Chick Hearn. The Justice Department has accused Elon Musk's SpaceX company of violating federal law by refusing to hire foreign nationals who are granted U.S. work permits as asylum seekers or refugees. In a complaint filed today, Department of Justice officials claim SpaceX rebuffed applications from asylum seekers and refugees from 2018 through last year. Donald Trump has tapped a new lead defense attorney as he prepares to turn himself in and has now turned himself in, where he faces allegations of orchestrating a sprawling racketeering conspiracy to subvert the 2020 election. Steve Sato has represented other high-profile clients in recent years, including a star University of Georgia linebacker who pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting 2 women, and Sergio Kitchens, a rapper also known as Gunna, who pleaded guilty to a racketeering charge last year. Sato's high-profile clients have also included figures like Howard Stern, Usher, and Rick Ross. And finally, Luis Rubiales will resign tomorrow as president of the Spanish Football Federation after he sparked international outrage by giving a non-consensual kiss on the lips to a Spain player as she celebrated her team's victory at the Women's World Cup. After Spain won the World Cup final against England Sunday, Rubiales grabbed Spain's midfielder Jenny Hermoso and planted a kiss on her lips during the medal ceremony and later joked that he would take the team to Ibiza and marry Hermoso there. Hermoso said on Instagram Live that she did not like it. Rubiales made a half-hearted attempt to apologize, saying his actions had, quote, no ill intentions and happened in a moment of the highest exuberance. But his apologies were not enough for Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who slammed Rubiales and also called his actions unacceptable. Rubiales also appeared to grab his crotch during the match in boisterous celebrations. When we come forward, we are going to be talking to Dr. Allison Nugent, Associate Professor of Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and Dr. Clay Trauernicht, who is an extension specialist in ecosystems and fire for the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. And we're also going to be talking to Nick and Tiana Collins, small business owners of Shoots Wellness in Maui. And we're going to be talking about how the Maui wildfires happened and the state of Maui right now. We're going to have that discussion when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Access granted. In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
On Areva Martin in real time, Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin today, and I am very grateful to be joined by some individuals who are in Hawaii, in Maui, and in Oahu. Dr. Alison Nugent, Associate Professor of Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and Dr. Clay Trauernicht, Extension Specialist in Ecosystems and Fire at the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, which is on Oahu. And Nick and Tiana Collins, small business owners of Shoots Wellness in Maui. I'm so grateful to have you all here. First, I want to start with you, Nick and Tiana. Just how are you doing?
Wow, Avi, that's pretty much a loaded question because physically we're great. We are from the west side, living over on the west side, Hanuakwai, which is just north of Lahaina. So we were a part of kind of the freeway, we call it the poly traffic, when the fires were happening, not knowing how serious they were, but we have landed safely on the North Shore, and the whole family's together, which is the most important.
So Nick, where were you when the fires took place? Were both of you in harm's way as the fires were happening?
So we were right in Lahaina. When it happened, nobody had information, right? So the cops are kind of blocking off certain pathways to kind of give you the safest route out, but no one was sure what was going on other than the high winds. So Tiana, myself, and her mother-in-law, were in the car, literally taking her to the airport. And we were about 45 minutes before the entire town, Front Street engulfed. So had we been just a little bit later, we would have got caught up in that. We mazed our way up to the main highway, got out of Dodge, and from then we were not allowed to go back for another 2-3 days. With no information, no idea if our place made it or not. Just luckily we had friends to crash with over those couple days, but that spot where we were completely burned down, Front Street. Yeah.
When you say that spot you were, do you mean that you're home?
No, so we were driving to the airport from our home, which is about 2 miles north of Lahaina, but we were going right through Front Street, which is the main hot zone where all the property and life was lost. But we were 45 minutes before that spot engulfed. Luckily.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so do you know, I know you, Tiana, you said you landed safely on the North Shore. What is the status of your residence, of your previous residence, where you were before the fires happened?
I'll take that. So there's a strip just before, or just after Lahaina, Honokawai to Napili. And that strip features thousands and thousands of residents, a couple of micro communities. Immediately, that strip was left without power, compromised water, zero communication, everyone's cell phone read SOS. So we went back a few days later, everything was intact, no fire damage. However, there was just no communication, everyone was in the dark, no water. So that's where the community kind of galvanized, came together, collected resources, and began to start the relief program prior to FEMA or anybody else showing up.
Wow. Wow. Well, I really appreciate you both being here. And I want to get more into, what's going on over there now in just a minute. But first, I want to bring into the conversation Dr. Clay Trauernicht and Dr. Allison Nugent, both with the University of Hawaii Manoa. So whichever one of you wants to take this one. But first, what's your best understanding as to how these wildfires started?
Sure, maybe I'll jump in first. This is Allison, and I'll start with the weather side, and then Clay can pick up with the fire side. So this was a period where there was the tropical storm Dora, or Hurricane Dora, moving south of the islands at that time. And it's a little bit debatable as to whether or not the hurricane directly contributed to the winds. Certainly the hurricane environment led to stronger winds, but there were also other factors at play from a meteorological perspective. For example, downslope winds blowing down the lee side contributed to the high winds that were blowing during this time period. Also, the air was quite dry. So both of those things, high winds and low relative humidities, are a common thing that will set off what's called a red flag warning. And it was pretty well forecasted, well predicted. We, from the National Weather Service, knew that there would be these conditions well before it happened. As much as 3-4 days, they were warning fire managers that red flag warning conditions would be in place. And yeah, I'll send it over to Clay next, because I think that these weather conditions set up for the fire to kick off as quickly as it did.
Yeah, because Dr. Nugent, you're an atmospheric science professor, and Dr. Trauernicht, you are more of a fire expert. So how did Allison told us how this fire kind of got started, but why do you, in your estimation, why do you think it was so extreme? Why do you think the damage was to the level it ended up being?
Well, the damage is because you had a fire that jumped from these fuels, like the grasslands that surrounding Lahaina, or surrounded Lahaina. And then once it jumps into the buildings, that's kind of what led to the devastation and really the event and the incident, which your other guests were trapped in. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, it must have been pretty terrifying. And so you have this landscape around Lahaina, which is really sensitive to the weather conditions that Allison was describing, where it's all these lands that were actually formerly under agricultural production. So this used to all be sugarcane up until about the late 90s. And so once those sugarcane operations have pulled out, we've seen the same thing in central Maui as well, just more recently. Once those sugarcane operations pull out, you get these non-native grasses that just fill in that landscape. They obtain like lots and lots of biomass, right? So there's all this material to burn. And when they do ignite, and it's kind of important to understand like that ignitions are really frequent across the state, like about 800 to 1,000 per year. So I'm not sure whether the official word is out about how this started. It might have been a rekindle from an earlier fire earlier that day, but it's not really clear. But regardless of that, whatever started it, you have these fuels that are just kind of dried out and primed to burn. And when you get the wind conditions and atmospheric conditions that Allison was describing, these fires burn incredibly explosively, incredibly fast. And this one in particular was too fast for the fire department to get in front of and between all that dry brush and then the homes kind of on the uphill side of the town. And so once that changes from grasses burning to buildings burning, the fire department at that point, you have to remember as well, they're responding to a very large fire that's still burning upcountry Maui, the other side of the island. And so their forces are probably spread pretty thin. And it's an incredibly difficult situation at that point to put the fire out.
So Dr. Karnick, go ahead, Allison.
I was just going to jump back in and say that the winds, there aren't good weather observations on that side of the island, but the winds were something like 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. So really, really strong winds. And some of the videos are just horrifying with, flames and embers going horizontally. And so that's part of the reason why it spread quickly. And another point that I think Clay probably would bring up is that a lot of times these types of fires are fought aerially with helicopters, but under those kinds of wind conditions, you can't fight fires aerially. And so that was another issue that compounded the disaster.
So while we're waiting official word, just with both of your estimation, do you think that it was a combination of those hurricane style winds that really kind of made it uncontainable?
Yeah, I think so.
That and also just very little preparedness for this fire. So, when you talk about all these elements that come together to make a fire happen, the things that you can actually do long before a fire happens is you can manage those fuels. Like, so you plant different kinds of plants, you can establish networks of fuel breaks, you can use irrigation, you can strategically manipulate that vegetation to make it less likely to burn and therefore provide a layer of protection between where your potential ignition sources are, which are often along roadsides, for example, and the community, right? The thing that we're worried about most is people, right? And then the other thing is just hardening the homes. That's like the kind of fire word for like the fire community word, where you sort of make your homes and the materials around your home less likely to burn. And then the other thing is just that in the infrastructure within these communities, the way they're designed, as I'm sure your other guests can speak to, would make it very difficult to get out of the way of these things, right? So you think about the tsunami warning setups and what are your options? And there's literally pretty much one road that goes along the coast. I mean, there's a little bypass that goes above that, but you don't have a lot of options once you're in an incident like that to get out of there. And so what we've seen, not so much that like, oh, we built this town into this really fire-prone environment, actually through all of this kind of historical change in land use, the fire risk around Lahaina, as well as many, many other towns in Hawaii, people are starting to look at the work that we've been doing on this are really at high risk of fire because of those changes in land use.
We're speaking to Dr. Clay Charnick and Dr. Allison Nugent of the University of Hawaii Manoa, which is on the island of Oahu. And we're speaking with Tiana and Nick Collins, who are small business owners of Shoots Wellness on the island of Maui. Nick and Tiana, I wanted to ask you, what's it been like? You talked about that day and about you guys narrowly escaping, almost being caught up, driving your mother to the airport, and barely kind of being out of the path of that fire. But what was the rest of that day like, and the days that followed?
We can start off with divine timing. I say that because the only reason why we were up was because we were trying to have breakfast in the morning with my mom before she left to go back to LA. And as we were driving down Front Street and showing kind of her all of the buildings and all of the, businesses and the banyan tree, it's almost like the last drive goodbye. We turned up Dickinson to get her to the freeway. And that was the only street that you could kind of venture toward in order to get out of Lahaina. Everything else was blocked off
At
that point. Correct. I mean, crashing at friends' houses who live near, the beach, which brings you at least a little bit of peace. Like, okay, there's clean air over here. We're safe and sound. The fact that we went back to go grab our dogs, like all of these things to, the family was together. We didn't get home for another 3 days. So you could imagine how terrified I would be if things turned another way. So blessed and divine timing. What about you, Dave?
I'd say it's been great for us personally. A lot of people are in terrible situations. So luckily our business, which is our cafe and coffee shop, survived. It's on a different side of the island. And, everyone knows Maui depends on tourists. So without tourism, there's just no revenue. But we're in a position to help. So we can pretty much convert our menu into grab-and-go wellness items to take to the people. So selfishly, that's great for us. And it's just a little bit of what needs to be done to bring this place back or to bring it forward. But it's what we can do. And so we're going to convert out all of our wellness products, our drinks and our coconuts and our sea moss gel and all of our cool things into small package items and take them back over to that community, to those people who are without power, without water, without communication. And just do that as long as we can. And once that runs out, we'll figure out something else. But we're going to stay here and fight and help bring it back. And this is only the beginning. So we're here for the long run.
And can you just tell everyone what the name of your coffee shop is?
Shoots Wellness, SHOOTZ Wellness. Shoots is like a local Hawaiian kind of slang. You can look it up, but it has a bunch of positive meetings. And what we're doing is bringing wellness products that we learned in Southern California to this place. Just hoping to make it, bring some wellness and put some smiles on some people's faces by providing some nourishment and some nutrition.
Shoots Wellness with a Z, SHOOTZ Wellness. So, Tiana, you mentioned divine timing. That is just such a terrifying story, especially with your mom in town. And what if her flight would have been later, just a little bit later? Just unbelievable.
Yes. Avi, her neighbors, she was staying at an Airbnb. Her neighbors left it. Well, tried to leave a day later. So she also was on one of the last flights that was able to leave because of course, airport ended up shutting down, and then they were using that as kind of like a relief space for people who they were, bringing from the West Side. I would like to say that the local efforts have been absolutely phenomenal. I feel very hopeful that the spirit of the people that are here on the island, of course, local vibes, like everyone is showing their resiliency, staying positive and supporting. We call it Kukua, and it's really about supporting, helping the community. You can read, about people's stories online, but the idea is to continue to help in any way that you can, whether that is a good feeling and saying, hey, we send you guys good love, some prayers here and there, or if you guys can do, monetary donations, or for us, it's about harvests, fruit, vegetables. How are we going to nourish the people? How are we going to bring nurture and nutrients back into their spirit, into their soul, into their bodies, physically, mentally, emotionally too, because, this is tough. This will take some time to get through, but the vibe as a community is strong. Maui's strong.
Dr. Nugent, and then we'll go to you afterwards, Clay. But I want to get your thoughts on what's it been like on the neighboring island of Oahu at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. It's a different island. You all weren't in danger. What's been the vibe over there?
Yeah, I think I personally have been feeling kind of helpless. I've been hearing stories like yours, and I wish that I could do more. I think from a research perspective, there has been a lot of discussion of what can we do to, either prevent this or make it better. So for example, there were some emails this morning going around about needing air quality sensors, and can we put some together real fast? And so tomorrow I'll meet with some of my students to see if we can make some air quality sensors to send over to Maui. So there are a lot of ongoing efforts like that of like, okay, we need this. Can we do this now? Can we do this fast? And at least it's, a way to help a little bit, doing the best we can.
When we come forward after this news, traffic, and sports update, Dr. Clay Chowrick, I want to ask you the same question, and also about the possibility of it happening again. And I know that Dr. Nugent, you have a couple of small children, so if you're able to stick around, that would be great. But if you have to go, I totally understand. We'll continue this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580. You're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk station.
We're back on Areva Martin in real time. Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin this evening, and we are joined by Nick and Tiana Collins, small business owners of Shoots Wellness on Maui, and Dr. Allison Nugent and Dr. Clay Trowernicht of the University of Hawaii, Manoa. All right, Nick and Tiana, if you can just walk us through, first of all, just how it works in getting to certain places on Maui. And getting to Lahaina and the challenges that has posed recently.
So there's pretty much one way in and one way out. There is an alternative back road. Might give you an extra hour to 2 hours, and if you're not familiar with the terrain, it's pretty unsafe. A lot of narrow one-lane highways, a lot of sketchy turns, and huge cliffs. So it's recommended to take the poly or the main highway. Well, when the entrance to that highway is blocked off due to fire, and the fire is jumping over that poly, which is exactly what happened in Lahaina, there's no way to get out, and a lot of people got caught. I read reports that said, unless you went around the barriers, you weren't making it out of there. And those are, accounts for people who made it out. So getting in is tough. It's already an hour plus drive from the airport. Into Kaanapali, just past Lahaina. So if you're in a scramble and you got to get out of there and the place is on fire, you can imagine what that scene looked like. Car after car piled up, nowhere to go. A lot of people were forced to leave their vehicles and flee to the ocean, jump in the water. Coast Guard picked them up, local fishermen picked them up, but that was the scene. So getting out of there that day or getting in there that day or the next day, impossible. Luckily, the fire department acted pretty quick and the police department acted fast. And we were able to get back to our homes 72 hours later, along with the rest of the island.
And so I'm not sure if I have my Maui geography correctly. Lush side of the island is the west side, right?
That's more of the desert side of the island today.
Okay,
It used to be lush back in the day, but yeah, it's more of the desert, hot zone with a lot of brush and a lot of fuel, perfect for fire conditions.
Okay. So when you travel the road to Hana, then you're going around and you're going down and you're coming around on the west side then, right?
No, you're going northeast to the road to Hana. So the entire opposite side of the island. Maui split up into two mountain ranges, two volcanoes, both inactive. So when you're going to Hana, you're going around the larger volcano, which is Haleakala. That's where the telescope is and the science center up top. So if you're over there, you were fine during these fires. The fires were on the more arid side, which is Kaanapali, Lahaina, and West Maui.
Okay, got you. So, Dr. Charnick, you mentioned that in the 90s that the sugarcane started to kind of go away, and there started to be some non-native grasses being more prevalent there. Do you think why did this level of fire take so long to happen if that started to happen back in the 90s? And more importantly, do you think something like this could happen again?
Well, we've seen repeated fires in Lahaina, around Lahaina, north of Lahaina, central Maui, in aftermath of all these plantations shutting down. So this has been happening. It's just that, again, the fire department is very good at response, and Maui, all of the county fire departments are really good at protecting homes, protecting people. And so it's very rare that we see homes lost, and never have we seen the destruction that of this fire. And so, it is really closely linked to this historical change in land use. And the real classic example, or not even classic, recent example of this is in 2016, the sugar plantations in central Maui shut down. So you had 36,000 acres all of a sudden are no longer being cultivated. They fill in with these grasses that have been introduced within the past century or so from all over the world, mostly from Africa, but they grow very aggressively. It's, as I said, these big fuel loads and burn very hot and fast. And so in 2019, after the sugar plantation shut down, we saw about 20,000 acres burn just in central Maui. And so again, the relationship is pretty direct, and we can point to lots of different projects, but agricultural production is one of these alternatives, right? So we can point to lots of different strategies that you can use to reduce risk on these landscapes. But the problem is there's just nothing being done, no incentives to sort of force the landowners that are sitting on these lands to actually take action. And so this is a similar story in lots of parts of the island. So west Oahu has the same history. West side of Kauai has the same history. Big Island, similar thing. Lots of ranching operations that are now, they've shrunk over time just because it's hard to make a buck farming here, mostly due to labor costs and all that. So, you're just seeing that land use transform around our communities, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but, shortly thereafter, this fire risk increases due to all these non-native grasses.
So what you said that some landowners are slow to act. What do you think that they could do in order to help prevent this kind of thing from happening?
There's a number of things. Kind of starting, the most basic would be networks of fire breaks, where you sort of mowing or spraying these linear features across the landscape, and these provide networks of opportunities for firefighters to get between the fire and the thing that's at risk. In this case, like the homes of Lahaina. On the other side, foresters are trying to do that, like to block these fires from coming from these grasslands up into the forest. The next level, you could be thinking about grazing, right? So there's lots of projects where people are cooperating with ranchers to get animals and do targeted grazing, strategic grazing. Then you get into cultivation, right? Or reforestation, and where you're actually changing those grasses into something else. And I think it's really important for your listeners to understand that prior to the development of these agricultural operations, so you're going back into the 1800s, when white folk first came to these islands and saw the Hawaiians had developed these really sophisticated systems of wetland agriculture, food forests where they're growing breadfruit and banana, fish ponds. And so the historical records show that Lahaina itself was this amazing, lush, productive landscape. And then the when the plantations came in, they're also diverting water away. And now the big battle there is use of this water for development, right? So a lot of these corporations that were doing production on that large landscape scale are now in the business of home building and whatnot. And so again, what are you going to make more money doing, subdivision development or, farming? And so I think that the answer is pretty clear on that one.
So they chose development despite how it would affect the people of Hawaii. So Dr. Nugent, before we got to let you go, is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should talk about that we haven't brought up that people need to know about?
Yeah, I think that something that struck me is you said, why hasn't this happened before? And it has happened before. So there was a hurricane in 2018 called Hurricane Lane that caused a fire in almost the same exact place. Oftentimes it's always the lee side of the islands. It was the same sort of strong winds and dry air down the lee side. And as Clay mentioned, the firefighters are really good at managing them. But I think in this situation, with such strong winds that were stronger than that 2018 event, it would have been nearly impossible to do anything. But I think there were warning signs. It has happened before, and I think there were some missed opportunities to try to prevent this kind of thing that I hope will be taken more seriously in the future.
Yeah, I was talking about more on this scale. Why hasn't this happened at this level yet?
Yeah, okay, sure.
But yeah, obviously fires are a problem on Maui and on other parts of other islands. But Dr. Trowernick, anything else that you think we should talk about before you have to jump off?
Just that this was preventable. That's like the sort of most kind of heartbreaking part. And, and there are people taking action. We just have to scale this up and really think about, as a society, what are we investing in? How do we have the capacity to transform these landscapes to make them less likely for this thing to happen. We don't have to be at the mercy of these weather events. We don't have to put people in the situation that Nick and Tiana faced.
So Nick and Tiana, you're going to stick around, and I want to ask you about what people can do to help your situation and for all those who are most affected on Maui. Dr. Allison Nugent, Dr. Clay Trowernick, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. Really appreciate you.
No
Thanks
problem.
for having us.
Take care, guys.
Take care. When we come forward, we are gonna bring Nick and Tiana back and talk about what we can do to help. And also, I want to ask you both, we've heard a lot about those warning systems and how they weren't alerted. I want to ask what your experience with that was, and whether you think that that could have helped if it had, as residents of Maui. And we'll have that conversation when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on? Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles.
We're back on Areva Martin in real time. Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin this evening. Very grateful to be joined by Nick and Tiana Collins, small business owners of Shoots Wellness on the island of Maui. So before we step aside, Dr. Clay Trowernick from the University of Hawaii Manoa was saying that he believed this was preventable. Nick and Tiana, whichever one of you wants to go first, you can both answer it if you want, but what are your thoughts about that? Was this preventable?
In our experience, being on the ground, I would lean towards yes, it was preventable as far as the amount of life loss and property loss. Of course, you can't do anything about a fire that's raging with 80-mile-per-hour winds. I think the fire department did a great job responding. However, if the winds are going to be like that, and a hurricane's coming in, if the down power lines are the culprit, right? That's the word that fallen power lines sparked a few sparks, and the wind took it, and that's what kind of set the thing off. So if that wind is coming in, got a couple hours heads up before the hurricane gets there. I'm no expert, but if I was in a position, I might say, let's cut the power to prevent that spark from happening. Outside of that, just getting rid of all that fuel, like the good doctor said, all that brush, all that invasive grass, getting that out of the way, any kind of old building or any kind of wood, any kind of fire fuel, just like California. Same thing is up to 5 in the Central Valley, Central Coast. You got to get rid of it. That's the only way to prevent it. But that's from being on the ground. What do you think?
It's interesting because, there a couple things happened. Like this was the trifecta of disasters. We not only have 2 large fires on opposite side of the island, one up country, one in Lahaina, but Doris just off coast sending us what we thought were only going to be 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. By the time you see these videos, you're seeing power lines at, angles touching down, breaking off, tapping down, and that's because of 80 to 90 mile an hour gusts that were also lasting for very long periods of time. And we've been around this type of wind, the 50 to 60 gusts. I don't know what 90 feels like, but you could see it in the videos that it was pretty intense.
So I was on Maui a couple years ago. My wife and I, we actually stayed in Kapalua, which is north of Lahaina, I believe, not too far north. And it's just so sad that this had to happen at all, and that so many people are affected, and I believe there's between 1,000 and 1,100 people still missing. Death toll was at 115, last I read earlier today. And one thing that I've been reading about, and I wanted to ask you both about, is the lack of warning from the warning system. You have supposedly one of the most advanced outdoor warning systems in the world, but they weren't activated. And I wanted to ask you both what your experience was with that. Did they come on at all? Did they come on late? If they had come on earlier, would that have made a difference? What are your thoughts?
I believe it would have. The warning siren is tested every month on the first of the month. We hear it. Everyone hears it. The tourist always asks what's going on. It's always the first of the month at the same time every month. And that's for a reason. That's for when the thing really comes, to make sure it's going to be working. For some reason, it wasn't. The gentleman in charge was on a different island at a conference. It turns out that he's recently resigned. I'm not sure what his position was at that time, but he did mention that had he pulled the siren, everybody would run towards the hills, because that's what naturally the siren was intended for, in case there's like a flood or a hurricane. However, apparently there's more than one alert coming from that speaker. So I believe if that siren went off right away, people would have had a chance to get out of their house, get in their cars, and get out of Dodge, as opposed to waiting until it's 80, 90 miles per hour and there's no chance of getting out.
Yeah, I actually I remember reporting on that dude. His name is Andaya, the head of Maui's emergency management agency. He resigned, citing health reasons, but that was the day after he defended the silence of the island's siren system. He was asked whether he regretted it, and he said, "I do not," saying that he, as you said, Nick, that he worried that the alarms would have sent residents inland into the fire because they would have thought it was a tsunami warning or something. And State Senator Angus McKelvey, who represents Lahaina and lost his home in the fires, he said that response was insulting and that they're not tsunami sirens, they're disaster sirens. So for all kinds of disasters. We have a few minutes left. I want to make sure to let people know what the best way to help is. What would you recommend that people both here in LA and people listening around the country, what they should do to help the people of Maui?
There's a number of things you can do. If you're familiar with Katrina or California wildfires or any disaster we've had in America, the same organizations are on deck. Pick your favorite, but I would argue, or I would recommend that you should look into some local organizations, any kind of local organizations that are using the term Maui Strong, and just pick one that you resonate with yourself. What we're doing, as mentioned previously, we're gathering a bunch of fruit donations from our community farmers and our community neighbors, processing those fruits into drinks and bringing delicious drinks over to the people that need it. If you want to help with that, once the neighbors' donations run out, we're going to head to the farmers markets and head to Costco and get all the food we can get and create this menu. If you want to help with that, you can Venmo Shoots Wellness, SHOOTZ Wellness. Or you can, like I said, look into any local organization. Is there one coming up?
I believe the one that's off the top of my head would be Lahaina_Ohana_Venmo. These are Lahaina residents who lost everything, lost their homes. We also know some people who are close and dear to us. So you can always reach out to, either Nico or me, and we can always give back to the community in that way as well. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember on a previous show shouting out the Maui Strong Fund, as you said, Nick. Anyone who uses the term Maui Strong, that one's run by the Hawaii Community Foundation, hawaiicommunityfoundation.org, and also mauifoodbank.org is another one. So, is there anything that we haven't mentioned that we should that either of you want to put out there?
It's just the first few days is kind of the honeymoon phase. The president was here a few days ago. He gave everybody $700 and gave his related with the story of his also. So the governor is gone, he's gone, and now we're under the mayor's leadership, who's still doing a great job, in our opinion, of getting the word out and communicating. So all the local folks are following Mayor Dixon's leadership, and just got to reassure that guy that we're here for the long haul. We're not intending to flee and go anywhere and run. We're going to stay and fight and help bring this place back, help bring it back better. It's going to be an all hands on deck kind of thing. So like I said, this is just the beginning. I will share with you as we go more into this, other ways your audience can help, other direct ways of communication, of relief, give back for the communities affected. But we're going to wait to get the word from the top man, Mayor Bisson, first.
Okay. Tiana, anything you want to add?
I think the one thing I'd like to add from a wellness perspective and from just a person of the community who feels that loss on an emotional level, any type of, prayers or good vibes that you want to send out this direction is always great too. Sometimes people think that it has to be in a form of physicality, but sometimes just knowing that we have support, that you continue to share this story and share our story with others, I think that's going to be also very helpful. So thank you so much, Avi.
Well, absolutely. Thank you both for being here, especially with so much going on, you having to relocate and all the things that you're doing for the community. Really appreciate both of you, owners of Shoots Wellness. Make sure to check them out and send them a donation if you can. They're using it not only for themselves, but for the community of Maui and Lahaina. So, and we definitely will keep everyone apprised of any developments. If there's anything that you ever want to share with us going forward, or you guys have an open invitation on the show. So just let us know. And thank you both for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, my man. Great job. And we'll be in touch soon.
Aloha.
Sounds good. Take care. Nick and Tiana Collins, small business owners of Shoots Wellness on the island of Maui. Make sure to check them out. And when we come forward, Robin Ayers will be joining you with the Raw Report. I'm Avi Bernard, and I'm gone.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store.